Hello, grassroots, G Sprouts. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Mixing 101. Happy Earth Day. And yeah, this is really great. Going to be doing kind of a crash course on mixing, DJing, everything that goes into it. I made this fancy PowerPoint, and, everybody knows that school class needs to have a useless PowerPoint to go with it, right? So, um, let's kind of dive into it. And going to be kind of talking about what the main areas are to what goes on with DJing, from the equipment that you're using, how you're actually getting your audio through a high level look at music theory, but it kind of ties into really the beginning of anybody mixing, and then the music itself, of course. The different styles of music, how to organize it, how to find new music, and then really the live application and how to kind of put, everything together, in the end here. And here I got some nice pictures of some of the gear that's widely used. Really everything DJing started with vinyl. Um, is still prevalent today, and actually vinyl's like coming back. It's crazy. Um, the CDJs up top, that's kind of like your industry standard in terms of digital DJing. Um, everything, it's three separate pieces actually versus kind of the controllers, which is what I'll be using today. I use a Tractor S4 primarily, but if you ever see me out and about, I mean, very likely could see me on some CDJs. Um, they're really widespread. I mean, it's like I said, kind of the industry standard. It's really user friendly, and the greatest thing about those, you can just kind of plug in your USB. Um, really crazy how the evolution has gone from carrying crates of plastic, really, all these vinyls, to everything being totally digital, to where you can walk in with a USB and headphones and plug it and play. It's just really cool how that's all kind of advanced. And even the tape. Um, I have a video here. I'm not sure if it's gonna work, but um, I thought this was a really cool kind of way to start this because, I mean, in short, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Um, Mr. Tape plays two tape decks like on this. I mean, it's got to be like custom built. I don't know. Some of you guys might have seen this video before, but I'm gonna play it. I'm not really sure if you'll hear it, but even still, you can kind of see him scratch and work. Oops. This is gnarly. So I saw this video a long time ago. I think I probably saw it even before I DJ'd, and kind of got into this stuff. Fascinated by this, simply because it's just so crazy. Uh, the level of innovation and just using what you have around you to, still mix. And I think this video is from like 1991 or something, so really not that too far into, um, even kind of the DJ evolution through when it started. Um, Absolutely wild. And before I kind of keep going, I totally realize right now I totally want a soundboard. I really wish I had some really cheesy sound effects and things that I could play. Something to learn for next time. Keep it a little fun. But getting kind of into the music a little bit here. Going to talk about some music theory, and it's funny that I say this. Like the first rule of music is there are no rules, which is a flat out lie. Because there are a lot of rules that you should learn and follow. To me, that makes sense. Only because the way that I got into mixing and even kind of production and everything that I've ever done musically, it's all about the manipulation of just sounds, creating them. Taking actually something, turning it into something totally different, and with today's technology and everything that's going on with synthesis, in computer applications, it's really crazy how far you can bend the rules and what you can really do in terms of creating music and what we hear today across every genre. It's ultimately being incorporated into it. And granted, bear with me here. I know this is really tough to see right now. I'm gonna zoom in on it. You'll be able to see it better. Just really couldn't find a good graphic here that was going to do well with being on a screen behind me and the lighting. But the general idea, with this, the circle of fifths, this is what music, ultimately lies in. At least what you know, what you and I know and listen to. 12 major keys, 12 minor keys, and they form this bond around them because it actually consists of just the same notes, um, sets of notes that you can jump around them through DJing. Like think of this as your roadmap, because every song has, I should say, almost every song has, a major or minor key. Side note there, the only reason there's a little asterisk is there's really weird things out there. Music in general, like non-Western music is just like not. It doesn't fit. It doesn't really fit. What um, major minor keys. It's not. That's a topic for a whole different day, really. But the great thing about this is that for me at least, how I kind of learned and very quickly understood it is software itself will actually convert this, depending on what you're using, to a number system. Rekordbox, I think it's Serato, both do the same one, and Tractor has kind of its own. But if you think about the 12 major keys and 12 minor keys, and that's all of music, you're pretty much, you have, a 12A, 12B, there's a relative minor. And to kind of explain, that a bit, every major key has a relative minor, every minor key has a relative major. It's very small differences in the actual scales that make up, these actual keys. A few different notes, completely change the sound. Minor music is kind of your sad and eerie and suspenseful, and major music is just very happy and it sounds, just very pleasing. Where minor kind of tests, what's really going on here. Kind of invokes those feelings. And one of the keys that I'm at least going to focus on, I'm going to zoom in actually on this one here. You should be able to see it a little better. So E minor is the one I'm using at least for these examples. Got this guy right here. Pretty much what it comes down to is when you're mixing, when you pick a track and it's playing live right now, and you're trying to find that next track, what's going to go well with it. There's little rules that you can follow, and it's really about, like I said, kind of following this system. So from an E minor, your best keys, the switches that you're going to be able to make to another key, are going to be either one above, one below, or the relative key. So in this case, if I actually go back a sec here. So in this case, A minor and B minor, are that left and right move. E minor to G major, those three, those are going to be really the best options in terms of kind of blending that sound. Now that's only second to actually mixing another song in the same key, which is definitely you know as you're kind of organizing the music, and like I said, we're going to get to kind of some application, and I'm going to go through some examples and explain a little more in detail. But um, mixing two songs that are in the same key, if you kind of stay on the same key for a little while, you'll find that's going to be the spots where you find some really cool, stuff that overlays. It's physically the same notes make up both of those songs. Um, the other options that you have if you're moving, like I said, we're going to kind of talk about E minor. Um, you can move in threes. I mean, really, it works its way out, but it's really a rule of threes. You could then, you know, transition into a song in G minor or C sharp minor. And those are going to be a little bit less, in terms of the scales, the seven notes that actually make up these keys. You're going to have less of a crossover, but sometimes that's really cool. You can kind of use it to build tension, and really it's about kind of listening, with your own ears, just because the the way that you're kind of interpreting these moves doesn't necessarily mean that that section of the music isn't going to fit really well with a different key. That gets a little more technical. Like I said, like some of this is I'm trying at least to be really high level in terms of music theory and explain it, but to kind of show a little bit about some of those switches. So I actually have here, these are the 12 notes that reside pretty much in any scale of the circle of fifths, and any major or minor key. And I highlighted the ones here that are in E minor. Um, that would make up the scale, basically. Those are just the notes that make up the chords and the various melodies and different things you hear across the track. And I was talking about the moves that you can make. So now, let's for instance, we're jumping across the circle of fifths. Like our song that we're playing right now is in E minor. We're jumping to G major, and this would be the comparison. Now, I hope this is easy to follow. I thought, for throwing this together, this worked out kind of well. But um, basically, what you're looking at is the notes in each scale and each key, and you can see kind of how much they, kind of the similarities, I should say, and the differences. Here, the difference between the major and the minor is only one note. Um, or I should say the relative minor, or the relative minor of G major. That's that move across and from the outer circle of the majors to a minor. Now, if we're gonna compare E minor and A minor, um, it's like I said, jumps available. The notes are there. This is gonna sound good, and here's why. There's your A minor on the bottom, and you know, difference of only one note. So it's really about kind of finding, you know, the next kind of point that I was going to get to is really kind of like knowing your music, um, because when you listen to stuff, if you listen to a pop song, you're going to hear the same four chords through the entire song. Might kind of they might kind of trick you for a little bit, and kind of make you forget that it's really the same four chords over and over again. But um, with electronic music especially, I mean, there's so many crazy producers that, like, whatever genre you're in, you're gonna find really cool, crazy stuff. And some of those songs are gonna have key changes. So a lot of this is about not only knowing on paper. I'm very visual, so this is just kind of how I was able to picture and put it all together on like why it works like it does. Um, but it's even as important to listen and break down and know and hear things in your head before you're actually kind of doing it and try to think that way. Really creativity is what's thrived within kind of music forever, really. I mean, that's what it's all about. So, um, that would be like one of the sub rules under there are no rules, kind of thing. No, I'm just kidding. But oops, I went back. I'm going forward again. All right. Remember, I said the rule. There are no rules. One of the oops, go back. All right. When it comes down to now, I'll explain definitely right off the bat that this gets a little bit more into the musical weeds, but it's something that I have at least done DJ wise that wasn't anything that I ever picked up on. It was just kind of something that I figured out trial and error and just enough times messing around with some decks that I started doing some things and kind of going off of the being creative with knowing your music. I sometimes will jump in sixes. I will jump across the circle of fifths from say an E to a B flat minor or an A sharp minor. I'm sorry. And it's about finding the overlay as I was talking about your highest concentration I guess of notes that are going to be the same between how a song is where it classifies I guess on the circle of fifths what key it's in. um, there are still crossovers of some notes. So it's really about finding those parts and just messing around with it and loops and everything else. And I'm going to get into a little bit of that right now. I think. Let's see if PowerPoint says so. Oh, yeah, types of music. So this is just digital sense. Obviously, there's vinyl, there's tape, as I showed earlier. But you know, I guess really, the as in terms of files, because ultimately I don't mix vinyl, so I can't really touch on that aspect in terms of what it takes. But when you're mixing digitally in today's world, it's going to revolve around pretty much waves, almost exclusively wave files. They are lossless, is the term for it. It's really about how much of the actual frequency that human ears are able to pick up kind of to the max, like reaching it. I threw FLAC files on here. FLAC files are weird. I don't know much about them, but I do know that they are lossless and you will come across them. um, One thing to note, FLAC files can't be played on much. Um, Tractor plays them. I don't know about Serato. I'm not sure if I've ever tried to play one in there, but I can tell you that there might be one or two CDJ models that might play FLACs. I don't know, but the comparison kind of between those two to an MP3. Um, your MP3 is really it's not at all ideal. You're gonna mix them, especially somebody that's gonna be starting out. If you have MP3s and you're just ready to go, perfect, kill it. Start mixing with them. You know, I I started mixing with MP3s because I had my music that I had downloaded or CDs that I could get them from. But your wave files are going to be just that higher quality. They're going to actually be able to hit, um, the high level frequencies, the high upper frequencies. Same, flags too, I guess you could convert them, but um, to waves if you do come across these. But your MP3s really should be kind of a third option, especially if you ever get to the point of live performance. Tracking down wave files, whether you're buying them or what have you, or if you're getting them from a friend, make sure it's a wave, and really try to kind of hone that in. Like if you're starting out, like great, get some MP3s. You'll probably download some more. But after that, really like set out and just be like, I'm gonna get all wave files. It's like Pokemon, like gotta catch them all. Fill up your hard drives, stack it up. All right, we're gonna dive into it here. I'm gonna kind of switch to a different camera, and we're gonna do a little bit of demo on the decks and see how that goes. So give me a second here. All right, I think you guys can kind of see that. But this is the S4. It's a tractor controller. Um, it's really just kind of what I started with really early on, and you know, my next step is definitely to get some decks, but really it's not about what you're playing on. It's really about just knowing your music and practicing and playing. I really love Tractor, and actually, so I actually have in the bottom corners of the screen now. Those are the tracks that are actually loaded into my decks on the left and right here, and kind of lost my train of thought there. But yeah, Tractor. All right, so the songs that what you're seeing right now is a waveform. It's actually the uh, representation, basically, of what that sound is in kind of a visual, form. Um, like I said, I'm really visual, so that's probably why I kind of dove into this like I did. It was some of this stuff kind of clicked. And hopefully, if you're out there and you're thinking about starting it and you see this, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Definitely give it a try. Like I've never had more fun than I do when I'm DJing, when I'm mixing, especially live. And shout out to Shane, one of my best friends. He's the other half of Wonka, and it's just a blast. So when you're seeing this waveform, and I think you should be able to kind of do that now. We'll kind of see how the volume is. I don't know if that's too soft, but it really boils down to like counting, uh, the actual like mixing and kind of managing these songs. So um, if I'm starting at the beginning of this track, now I picked some house music here. This is really kind of what, at least, like house music as a genre, this is kind of what I started with, because it's just very, I don't want to say repetitive because that sounds negative, but it's very structured would be a good way to describe house music, and so it's very easy to actually maintain count and listen to these tracks and kind of know where you're going, what you're doing, and manage it that way. So if I get this going here, kind of listen to this. Now we're going up. This is Club Wonka Wednesday right now. So this is classic house music. You got your just drum, that snare. I don't know if I said it, but I was going to say it's all about counting. So if I actually go back to the beginning here real quick, I'm going to make a 4-bar loop. The fundamental of electronic music across the board is really following fours. Circle fifths, ones and threes, mixing here fours, and the multiples of three. It's about, this is kind of how you start to kind of figure out what you're gonna blend together, what you can do. DJing, looping is like this, added feature. I sound ridiculous right now. I'm listening to this track and it's on a 4-bar loop. I'm gonna let it play a little bit here. I got this other track here. So I should say this, like what you're seeing here, this is the left side of the deck. This is the right side of the deck over here. The track is not playing yet. I'm gonna mix these two tracks together. They're in the same key. In fact, I think all the examples, the ones I pulled, are all in the same key. It's just gonna sound a little better, and you can kind of get an idea of, a little bit solidifying what I was talking about, the circle of fifths. So this is like kind of what I said, this repetitive aspect of house music. I'm gonna start this track up. So I was able to line that up because in my head I was able to just stop and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And you have to count with the tracks like almost constantly. It gets down to the point where anytime I'm listening to music, I'm almost, even if I'm just in my car or something, I'm always actually counting the beats. Because what happens is, you want to line up your songs together. And the best way to do that is by following the fours. From 4 to 8 beats to 16 to 32. You're capturing the same kind of piece of music that you're in this other song. So I created this loop now. I made it 16 bars. I jumped a little further ahead in the song. Bring it in here in a sec. So I tried to figure this out, how I could do it, but, I'm listening in my headphones right now, actually queuing this track up to line it up, and I'm making sure that everything sounds good. That's basically what the headphones are for. Like I said, I wish I could have kind of figured this out a little different so you can see the cue and hear that. I'm going to bring this track in. So you hear how they're like, they're just so well lined up. They're almost playing together. Bringing up the bass on this one, I'll touch on that point actually. No, I actually totally took this left track out. It's going in the build up of this song. What I was gonna say, the bass. So when you're actually mixing two tracks, one of the biggest things you want to watch out for is clashing sub-bass sounds. Your mixer itself actually breaks down, your tracks. It's actually going to level them off through lows, mids, highs. That'll, effectively, we're only two decks here, so your left and your right. Your faders, which is your volume basically on whatever side, whatever track's playing. Because this one's not even playing right now. When I was bringing that track up, I had the sub bass completely down. I was really only getting those higher level frequencies, the vocals, a little bit of like the synth and the bass lead, but not a lot. You really don't want to mix two sub basses that are just going full blast ever at the same time. It's gonna get whack, pretty much. Just like that was one of the first things I learned. And I don't know, it's just very simple, but like a little rule there to really keep in mind. Even when you're mixing tracks, when you're starting to kind of figure out those different blends and what's working together, what's not. Listen for the things that are kind of clashing, in your headphones, or in your ears, or on the speakers you're listening to. Whether it's the hi hats or maybe there's claps in both songs that really are sticking. You want to kind of like manage that with your EQ and find kind of those sweet spots where you're getting kind of that overlay and that really great sound, but not overdoing it or kind of, creating this chaos and kind of battling. Really the art of DJing, and, it's something that I don't think anybody really, if you start it, ever stops. Anything with music, I mean, you're just trying to make it as smooth as possible and as seamless as possible. And that's, I guess, something that makes it a little bit different than, playing an instrument or something. I play guitar, but I can't play guitar straight through a complete hour. And there's so much further. A lot of people, I guess, one thing I'll touch on, there's so much stigma against, like, DJs. Some of the craziest stuff, even like just live music in general, has been some producers that have wild live setups, crazy stuff. Electronic and especially mixing and everything goes further than just mixing tracks and side A, side B type stuff. It's something I'm kind of starting to learn a little bit, but years away from really trying to do something like that live, likely. So I'm going to kick back in this track actually a little bit. I'm going to jump back. So one of the things with house music that one of the reasons why I think it's easiest to kind of learn on it, why I just focus so much on it, in terms of learning how to actually mix tracks and listening for things, is that I kind of felt like I was getting to this point, forgot to mention it earlier. There's 32 beat loops across most house music. There's, some variations where it gets a little bit off from that, but you can create really big, long loops, and because the pattern itself is really just a drum and a hard kick, or a hard clap, I should say, or a snare, you're able to really kind of like overlay things, and it's very easy to hear what's out of beat and what's in. These tracks right now, they're pretty synced up. This is pretty on point in terms of like beat matching. What beat matching really is about finding that sweet spot, matching the speed of the tracks, and then lining them up. You're playing them at the right time, putting it all together. This is what it would sound like if it was off. So you hear how it's kind of how that's clashing. You can kind of hear it. I mean, it's totally off. It's really important to just always kind of keep those numbers of like where you're at in the song. I don't think you need to get really technical with it. But then finding the spots where you can either start the song or start a loop, and then it's about finding that groove. So if I actually go back here. Detroit, baby. Yeah. If I throw it off again, you can hear how it's kind of clashing. You're kind of getting closer, ever closer to, that spot where your beats are lining up. You're really focusing on the drums, the bass, and, kind of going off that. Here now, it's just getting closer to that unison. That's kind of what you're doing every single time you're bringing up a track, loading it up, letting it go. Detroit, baby. So all I did right there is flip the bass up on the track I brought in and flip the bass down on the one I did, and I looped this track that would have been already playing. Yeah, stop this side. Now that's only this. That's about as kind of, the simple kind of routines and like different things like you want to kind of focus on it, at least if you're starting with house music. Just like I said, I don't know if I would recommend it because really you're going to want to mix whatever kind of music you want to mix. I tried to kind of make things in at least the way I'm talking about it, very oriented to, really however you're mixing. If anybody does have any questions, I'm going to put our socials on at the end and feel free. I was going to try to kind of monitor some of the questions or comments here. I don't know if there are any. So, this is from a while ago. Sorry, Samson. But I can tell you that his question is, why does Serato have shit like 2M and 3D? That's a really good question, and I will clarify that for you. Okay. So all Serato's doing is and now I rarely use Serato, so I don't know exactly which is which, and I don't know which keys are what, but the best way that I could describe it, it's the same as Tractor. Your 12 you have 12 minor keys, you have 12 major keys. So what I was talking about in terms of the jumping, actually like that. They've actually just created a system where you're not actually focused on remembering, like I'm going D flat to E minor, or I'm going D flat to E, um, or whatever you're doing. It's just numeric. So then you think, if it's 12M and 12D being the outer circle, and I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to talk into the mic. This is weird. So your 12D or your D's, your M's are inner. Um, let's say F is 1, M. You're gonna be able to go to a 1D or a 2M or a 3 or a 12M. You work your way around it like it numerically. It's really just putting the key label to a number, and then it just makes it easier to kind of think about it, especially on the fly, um, because then you're able to be like, okay, I'm gonna grab a bunch of songs in E minor here, like some sweet dub, and then I'm gonna switch, and you're able to just do it with like, okay, I'm going like 9M to 6M right here, and then like I'm gonna get a bunch of 6Ms or maybe like a 6M and a 5M that go really well back to, or down to a 2M. You're making those jumps, so um, I wish I could pull up a picture of the Serato one. If you're still watching, Samson, just look up the do a Google search for the Serato circle of fifths, and you'll see actually the numbers and kind of what I'm talking about there. Um, so I got a little bit more time left. I have a couple other like little examples, DJ wise. Just kind of showing a couple things. I'm gonna switch back to that here. A little more house music here. Um, again, just kind of going through, some of the last like little, tidbits and tips and things about, kind of picking a couple tracks and mixing them. Um, I've created this cue point on this track automatically when you load it into any kind of DJ software, whether that be Rekordbox, Serato, Tractor, um, Virtual DJ. I think would automatically do it, but I don't know for sure. It's gonna actually give this a grid that your beats are gonna go on, and that's actually then dictated by what speed, what BPM the track actually is. That's kind of how you count. So these are a little bit slower than the tracks that I played before here. This slower house, slow it down a little bit. This cue point, this is actually the first note where I always at least try to set, if I'm setting my first cue point, I want it to be in a really good spot to be able to move or at least use it as reference to how far in a song I'm jumping. So like right now, I'm kind of jumping, 32 beats at a time, but you can see that, the drop on this deck, the side, that the drop is right there. You can kind of see it in the waveform, and you get to kind of see these things differently the more you do it. I just really love the visual aspect, so I could actually go, really over to this point in the song. I know that this is going to be, that first beat of the drop, and I'm going to use that to actually mix this point in here. So I'm counting in my head right now. I'm going to do a 16-bar loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring those up a little higher. I don't know how loud that is. If one of you guys could comment on the music, and I don't know if you guys can hear me while the music is playing. This is all kind of a test today, but it's fun, right? Wonka Wednesdays going up in the club right now. Slowly bring up the bass here. I'm going to show something here that I'm really not going to touch much on, but the effect side of what you're able to do digitally. So I actually just echoed out this whole track. I have a delay filter that's on at least that effect right there. But, I could see that this was kind of coming up. I'm looking at, kind of the bottom, the bigger section of what the song really is. I know it's coming back up to another drop, and I wanted to move that transition along, get over there. There's a lot that you can do with effects. I would definitely recommend having discipline with them and knowing when to use them, because anybody early on is the first time that they hear the flanger. I'm one of them. I mean, I laid on the flanger a little bit too much early on in mixing, but they're fun. Effects just kind of add a little bit more, a little bit, different tools that you have in your arsenal. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to kind of go into that today, but I did want to kind of show one more example and wrap things up, make it come hopefully a little full circle. So I'm going to pull those tracks up here. So I went a little long on a couple things because there was a little more I wanted to talk about in terms of organizing music and finding the songs that really not only sound in the same key, but you're really trying to find the blends too within the genres and what works and what kind of is a little bit of a clash. It's kind of like it's very difficult to mix deep house with dubstep. It can be done, but like it's very different, or even anything. I mean, there's examples of that everywhere across every kind of genre, um, whether pop music included, like everything. Um, but organizing and kind of keeping a tab on that, and doing that from the start, really allows you to kind of build kind of groups. Like, you'll start to figure out what types of sounds and what types of music really work, and sometimes you'll find those ways that you can hybrid blend a couple genres and do some mashups and different things. Really goes back to the rule I had, that there are no rules, right? One of the things that also was kind of part of what I was going to talk about there is that I'm always almost in a way randomly looking for music. Randomly, I'm going down like crazy SoundCloud click holes like you wouldn't believe, because I'm just like always like, in a way, you kind of have to. You're a collector. Like I said, the wave files, got to catch them all. You always want to have like that stuff that's either new and really good, and you want it right away, or the stuff that's really low key that this random producer made that to you sounds good, and you're like, well, how is this guy not huge? Um, that's DJing. It's everything from finding the classic music that you grew up on, to even going back, I mean, there's ways you can mix music that, Beethoven wrote. I mean, it's crazy. DJing, you can just blend it all together. Um, and so I would say I don't do it too much anymore, but when I was trying to get creative and like find the things, just kind of doing them through experience. I would say it didn't happen often, but every once in a while I would hear something either at a show or in a mix that I was like, that's either a song that I already have that I've been like mixing with, or it was just a classic song mixed with something crazy, and I wanted to figure out what the something crazy part was. I'll go try to like recreate it and like find it. And so this was two songs that I think you pronounce his name Wobble, WBBL. He mixed these two in one of his mixes probably a couple of years ago. Guy makes awesome glitch hop, and it's just sick. Like his track, when I heard it in the mix, I thought that this was just a remix of As We Proceed by Charismatic, which I'm thinking there's a couple of you out there that have heard this one. So we're coming up on the part I'm going to mix in here. I got a loop here, kind of right before the build-up of this guy. If I take that loop out, also going to swap the basses. I'm going to loop that guy. You hear how well this sounds? This sounds like this should be. This is one song. So like I said, I heard this in a Wobble mix, like almost, I'm not sure if I'm mixing it exactly the same as he did, but, running through little things like that, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm promoting, just copying other DJs, but if you're practicing and you're looking for, trying to connect some dots in your head, I think that's one of the best ways to do it, because you're physically, I'm not saying look it up and watch somebody do it. I'm saying, all right, you take those two songs, you know what you heard, mess around with it, see if you can kind of do something cool, and it'll kind of change how you think about, what you're really able to do, and what mixing in general could do for you. I do want to thank you guys for joining me here. KVZ is coming up in a sec. KVZ, if you're listening right now, what's up, bro? I hope you're ready. I'm going to play a little bit of music after Caleb, and Shane's going to be up later. Appreciate everybody who joined. Shout out again to Grassroots, and thank you guys so much. We'll be back very soon. In fact, in about 5 minutes. See you guys.